Yeah, we back. Now, today we got an interesting video, man. Now, if you remember, about a month ago, I dropped a video entitled, Ibrahim Traoré liberates French spies. Disappointing decision. Now, in that video, a lot of y'all didn't like that video. A lot of y'all came into the comment section and y'all let me have it, right? Y'all got on my head about that video, right? But I was upset at the time. I was reacting to the fact that His Excellency, the captain, had liberated some of our enemies from captivity, right? I don't want my enemies to be liberated from captivity. So, of course, I was upset. I can admit I was upset. I was disappointed. But because I'm so authentic in my commentary, even when I'm talking about men that I respect, I still got to keep it real. I can't sugarcoat. I can't be a yes man, right? So in that video, I wasn't really too happy about the liberation of those French spies. But at the time, I had limited information. I didn't know all the facts of the situation. But now we understand more of the facts of the situation, right? More facts have been revealed. So now we can understand the inner workings and the mindset behind the decision. But anyways, man, so an article had recently came out in the French media, right? Take a look up on the screen. How 4 French intelligence agents held for a year in Burkina Faso were freed. Now, if you remember back during this time, when they were first arrested, the French government did not admit that these were intelligence agents. If you remember, because I did a video on it at the time, the French government originally had said that these were computer nerds, right? These were computer geeks. These were technicians coming to do IT work at the embassy. Now, a year later, in the present day, after they received liberation, they've come out and admitted that these were actually, yes, these were intelligence agents working on behalf of the French government. Man, listen, man, when I tell you these men are our enemies, you think I just be running my mouth. These men are our sworn arch enemies until the world is over. Now, anyways, let's run down the timeline before I jump into the article, right? Now, this article is coming from the publication in France called Le Monde, right? Le Monde newspaper, the publication, founded damn near 100 years ago by General Charles de Gaulle, right? General Charles de Gaulle, the infamous colonist. Yes, he was one of the founders of this publication. So this is coming from an official publication in France, not some, bootleg, some guy on Twitter. No, this is some real deal Holyfield. In fact, in order for me to access this article, I had to go through a paywall, right? So I had to literally pay, $2.49 just to get access to this article. I had to pay money to our enemies just to access this article, but I had to get the information, man. Now, anyways, let's start from the beginning. Let's run down the timeline before we jump into, the main event, right? Back in December 2023, take a look up on the screen. French foreign intelligence agents detained in Burkina Faso. The arrests revealed on December 19th and confirmed by diplomatic sources have embarrassed the French authorities, who repeatedly tried to dissuade the magazine from publishing the news. While French intelligence services have made discretion a doctrine, the foreign ministry has since been at pains to play down the incident. These 4 technicians were in Burkina Faso to carry out computer maintenance work for the French embassy, the source said. The French government takes note of the ongoing legal proceedings, but rejects any accusations that these technicians were sent to Burkina Faso for reasons other than their computer work. So, like I said, during the time back in 2023, the French government said these were not intelligence agents. These were not, agents of the French government. These were computer geeks that we sent to Burkina Faso to, fix the computers, right? Yeah. Anyway, let's continue. Now, about a month ago, we had got this surprising headline. Burkina Faso releases the 4 French nationals after detaining them for a year, right? We didn't get a statement. We didn't get an explanation. We just seen that, the adversary was liberated and we didn't understand why. I was upset. I was not happy, and I voiced my opinion on that. And a lot of people didn't like that. But now we got more clarification. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Let's get into it. Let's jump into the article. How 4 French agents held for a year in Burkina Faso were freed. Members of the French DGSE, and now the French DGSE, that's essentially the French equivalent of the CIA, right? The French equivalent of, the international intelligence services of any country, basically, right? Let's continue. Members of the French DGSE were held hostage for a year in Ouagadougou, that's the capital of Burkina, accused of espionage by Captain Ibrahim Traoré. It took bitter negotiations and the decisive intervention of Morocco to secure their release. Let's get into it. Night had just fallen on December 18th, 2024, when a Bombardier Challenger 604 private jet touched down at Ouagadougou Airport in Burkina Faso, owned by Air Ocean Maroc, Morocco's leading business aviation company. The aircraft was dispatched by Moroccan intelligence services. 3 hours later, 4 passengers boarded. These agents of the General Directorate of External Security, that's the DGSE, Direction Générale de la Sécurité Extérieure, the French Foreign Intelligence Agency, had just spent over a year in detention in Burkina Faso and were finally preparing to return to France. At 11:52 p.m., the plane took off again, bound for Casablanca. Back in Paris, there was general relief at the DGSE headquarters. The flight marked the end of one of the most serious internal crises within the agency, where the fate of the quartet had been causing endless turmoil. Wow, man, I'm telling you, man, the black man, yo, see, I told you, our enemies, like I told you, brother, our enemies, they gonna keep a good face, right? They gonna keep a good face in the public, right? They gonna talk real good in the public. They gonna be real arrogant in the public, but behind closed doors, they be stressing out, bruh. Behind closed doors, they be sweating, bruh. Behind closed doors, they be shook, heart racing, bruh. I'm telling you, man, like I told you, the black man, we got our foot on their neck. The black man got our foot on their neck. They stressed out. The adversary stressed out, bugging out. Don't let him fool you with his nice speeches and his arrogant demeanor and his arrogant posture. Our enemies are very uncomfortable and they're very shook at the moment. Let's continue. The French authorities owed this release, obtained after secret, long yet fruitless negotiations, largely thanks to Morocco's mediation efforts. On December 19, 2024, once the agents had arrived in a North African country, the Elysee announced that President Emmanuel Macron had spoken with King Mohammed to thank him warmly for the successful mediation that made the release possible. Some also saw it as a sign of détente sent by Captain Ibrahim Traoré at the helm of Burkina Faso since the 2022 coup. Like his Malian counterpart, General Assimi Goïta, the 36-year-old officer who came to power in the coup severed ties with France after the takeover. Relations between Burkina Faso and Paris then turned sour with the removal of the French ambassador and special forces based in the country for over a decade, and vitriolic statements against the former colonial power. Behind the scenes, however, operational cooperation continued between Burkina Faso's National Intelligence Agency and the DGSE. It was in this context that the 4 men traveled to Ouagadougou on November 29, 2023. They were members of the technical department that manages IT and telecommunication systems and have been sent to Burkina for a one-off operation lasting a few days. Now, we got to keep in mind, this publication is the colonial French media that was founded by Charles de Gaulle. So, as you can see, they're still trying to push the computer geek narrative, but we ain't going for it. Let's continue. 48 hours later, they were arrested at their hotel by agents of the State Security Directorate. I'm assuming that's the intelligence services of Burkina Faso. The charges were serious: espionage and destabilization intentions. They made errors that could have been avoided: the absence of a valid diplomatic visa, and above all, the possession of service phones that had not been cleared. In other words, purged of sensitive information as required by DGSE procedure. Now, this is some bombshell information. So these so-called computer geeks, when the brothers down in Burkina Faso went through their cell phones, they found some incriminating information in their cell phones, right? They said they had photographs of sites of interest in the capital. Now, what could that have been? That could have been photos of maybe government buildings, photos of military installations, photos of critical infrastructure. I'm just assuming, right? Something else that stuck out to me was also in their cell phones were contacts in regions under tight security. Regions under tight security. They had contacts in regions under tight security. I'm assuming the regions under tight security are the ones occupied by the terrorist groups. So they had contacts in regions that were occupied by terrorist groups. You see, they try to decorate it with all this fancy language. Oh, sites of interest in the capital and regions under tight security. Man, stop it. You was in contact with the terrorist groups, and on top of that, you were taking secret photos in the capital. We don't know what those photos could have been. I'm only assuming it could have been, like I said, government buildings, maybe, military installations where the military is stationed at. I don't know what the photos could have been, but whatever the photos were, it was enough to keep you locked up for over a year. Anyway, let's continue. They're going to get me angry up in here, bro. Let's continue. In mid-December 2023, the decision was taken to urgently repatriate the dozen or so agents from the DGSE posted in Ouagadougou. For Macron, it was the last straw. Already fuming against the French intelligence agencies, whom he accused of failing to anticipate a number of crises, including the coup in Niger, the president sacked the head of the DGSE, Bernard Emy, who was replaced by Nicolas Lanier. Now, time out. For those of y'all that have been following my channel, then you already know we spoke about that. So the head of the French DGSE, the French intelligence agency, Bernard Emy, after the coup in Niger, he was fired, right? He was fired for failing to anticipate the black man, taking power by the force of arms. You feel me? I mean, just look at his face. I mean, you can see the sadness written all over his face. You can see it all in his expression. My man is sad, right? The black man took power and he lost power. He lost his job. He can't even feed his family. Take a look up on the screen. Unable to get a new job from the Élysée Palace, the ex-DGSE, Bernard Emy, moves into consulting. So he can't even get a job in politics anymore. He can't even get a job no more, man. We made that man lose his career. The black man made that man lose his entire livelihood. Now we got to go be a political consultant. Now we got to go make a YouTube channel making videos like me. Let's continue. After being held incommunicado for 10 days, then incarcerated in a Ouagadougou prison, the agents were transferred before the end of 2023 to villas in Ouagadougou 2000, the capital's upscale district where the Burkinabe authorities operate secret detention centers. In Paris, a crisis unit was hard at work. Lanier began reporting to Macron, the president's chief of the general staff, General Fabien Mondon, and his diplomatic advisor, Emmanuel Bonnet, also kept a close eye on the situation. The French authorities first attempted a Togo-led mediation, supervised in person by President Faure Gnassingbé, who has connections with the Sahelian leaders. Now, Faure Gnassingbé, that's the president of Togo, like I said before, used to be a very trusted Western ally, known as a trusted Western vassal. But lately, as of recently, he's been enjoying the feeling of sovereignty. He's been enjoying, the energy of sovereignty. He's been linking up with, Assimi Goïta. He's been linking up with, General Chiani. And not only that, but also he has made available his ports for commerce. So for import and export, he has made available his ports to the AES so we can import, export, because we are landlocked. We need access to the sea. And he was the first one to extend that invite and give us access to engage in commerce through his seaport. So, Faure Gnassingbé, known as a trusted Western vassal for a very long time, but lately he's been indulging in the energy of sovereignty. So, shout out to Faure Gnassingbé. Anyway, let's continue. In December, the Togolese Minister of Foreign Affairs and the head of the intelligence services were sent to Ouagadougou to negotiate the fate of the 4 Frenchmen. To no avail, Captain Traoré, uncompromising, demanded the extradition of opponents exiled in France. Now, time out. For those of y'all who may not know, there are a lot of individuals living in France who are against the current regimes in power, who are against Ibrahim Traoré, who are against General Chiani, who are against Assimi Goïta. A lot of these individuals are members of previous regimes, previous administrations, or probably the last regime that was overthrown in the military coup. And a lot of them are very bitter. A lot of them are very angry because they no longer have access to their privileges and their trappings of being a government official. So a lot of these folks, they're living in France right now, and all they do is they spend day and night sitting up on the internet slandering Ibrahim Traoré, slandering Assimi Goïta, slandering General Chiani, because they're no longer able to have access to the state coffers so they can embezzle the money, so they can embezzle the funds, so they can live a lavish lifestyle at the expense of the population. So in this article, they said during negotiations, Ibrahim Traoré gave a counter offer, right? He said, okay, bet. You want me to liberate these so-called Frenchmen from our prisons? I need you to send me all of my opponents in exile that you got hiding in France, that you protecting in France. Send them back to me ASAP. Listen, man, I just want to apologize to Ibrahim Traoré if I ever doubted you, big homie. In that video I dropped last month, I didn't have all the information, big bro. You got to forgive me, big bro. I didn't have all the information. But keep it real, I never doubted you, bro. I never doubted you. I never doubted the genius. Now let's continue. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, uncompromising, demanded the extradition of opponents exiled in France, including former minister Djibril Bassolé, François Compaoré, the brother of the ex-president Blaise Compaoré, and journalist NelsonAmadeus. Paris categorically refused. You see what our enemies did? They want us to release their prisoners, but they don't want to send them boys hiding in Paris, right? Them boys hiding in Paris under your protection. You don't want to send them back. You see, I told you, these boys are our adversaries, our sworn enemies. Let's continue. Captain Traoré then asked for money, a considerable sum, according to a French diplomatic source, around 150 million euros. God damn, my man said, you better... Listen, we shaking down the multinational corporations for billions and billions and millions of dollars. Man, we telling the white man in front, listen, you want the prisoners back? I need 150 M's ASAP. You don't want to send the ops back? Fine. I need 150 M's ASAP pronto. Oh man, shout out to Traoré. Let's continue. Once again, French negotiators refused. In early 2024, the DGSC tried to open up another channel of discussion, this time through the United Arab Emirates, which has good relations with Burkina Faso. This strategy proved to be as effective. The French services, whose direct contacts with their counterparts in Ouagadougou were severed, nevertheless continued to try to pass on messages without knowing whether they actually reached Traoré. At the end of the first quarter of 2024, discussions were at a standstill. The French agents, for their part, had been separated into two pairs and were housed in two villas. They were each held in their own room, of which they hardly left. Apart from minor health concerns, for which they were entitled to a visit from a doctor, they were generally well fed and well treated, but they suffered psychologically and found it hard to bear the isolation. Some even came to miss the prison where they could at least get some fresh air during the daily walk and do a bit of exercise. The only visits they received from time to time were from the consul and the lawyer provided by the French embassy, at least when the jailers didn't deny them access at the last minute, for reasons that remain unexplained. For the French agents, some of whom are fathers, the irregular visits provided a link with the outside world. They enabled them to exchange letters with their loved ones and sometimes speak with them for a short while on the phone. Books were also provided alongside television to make their daily lives less monotonous. Man, they had them boys on timeout. They had them boys on timeout. Told them boys, go to your room. They told them boys, go to your room like a damn child. Let's continue. The matter had reached an impasse. At the DGSE, some people did not hide their dismay and wondered whether their own safety could be guaranteed during missions in a high-risk country. Others did not understand why an armed operation had not been carried out to free their colleagues. Now, time out. You see what they said? They said there were some individuals who did not understand. How come we not going in there guns blazing, ready to kill everybody? Right? Because like I told you, we know how the French get down. I told you how the French get down. And there was some that didn't understand. How come we are not employing violence and murder and bloodshed? How come we not, dropping bombs and killing people and killing innocent civilians? Immediately, their first thought was violence. Because that's how the French get down. That's how they get down, bro. That's how they get down. Let's continue. Others did not understand why an armed operation had not been carried out to free their colleagues. Le Monde found that such an idea had been envisaged. In March, the DGSC thought it had identified the villas where the 4 Frenchmen were being held. A plan of the site was drawn up, and an air assault from a neighboring country was studied. Time out. They said an air assault from a neighboring country. They were going to come in and invade from a neighboring country. Now we got to go to the map, right? We got to go to the geography of Burkina Faso. Who are their neighbors that the French could have used to attack Burkina Faso, right? Who are their neighbors on the border, right? To their northern border, they got Mali. It couldn't be Mali because the French do not have access to Malian airspace. If a French aircraft comes into Malian airspace, it's getting shot down, it's getting destroyed immediately. It's getting destroyed immediately. The French have not had access to the airspace in like 3-4 years. Now to their eastern border, you got Niger. It couldn't be Niger because same thing with Mali. If a French aircraft comes into Niger airspace, it's getting destroyed. It's getting turned into scrap metal, right? Now to their southern border, to their southeastern border, you got Benin. Now Benin, that's one of my candidates. That's one of my candidates. Now to their southern border, you got Ghana. Now Ghana currently at that time was under the leadership of Nana Akufo-Addo, right? Now we know, he's, wishy-washy, play both sides, but I won't really put that on Ghana. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I won't really put that on Ghana, right? I won't really put that on Ghana. Now, you also got Ivory Coast, right? So that's a candidate as well, right? So I would say the 2 candidates got to be Benin or Ivory Coast. Now, I had showed you back on December 31st, flight radar had picked up that a French military aircraft was flying through Benin airspace and landed in the capital back on December 30th at 4 p.m. So that was just a couple weeks ago. So as you can see, that's why I say, and we know, Ivory Coast is basically an overseas department of France. It's basically an overseas territory of France. So I would say those are the two candidates. When they say they were going to attack from a neighboring country, they were going to attack from, I'm 99% sure it was going to be from Benin or Ivory Coast, because those are basically overseas French territories. Now let's continue. A plan of the site was drawn up, and an air assault from a neighboring country was studied, but the operation, judged to be highly complex, was never undertaken. The risks, both human and political, were too great. All the more so, on the Burkina Faso side, the military government was aware of the possibility of such a scenario and had prepared itself accordingly. I repeat, the military government was aware of the possibility of such a scenario and had prepared itself accordingly. Now, like I told you, man, when I sit up there and I tell you that the boys in the AES, on the very low key, they gather in their military technology, they gather in their weapons and ammunition, they gather in their armaments. It's a reason why they've been in power for years and nobody has attacked them yet, because they know they've been gathering intelligence on them boys. They know what type of firepower they got. They know what type of weapons they got. They know them boys ain't coming to a gunfight, with some scissors. No, they coming with some firepower as well. They coming with some artillery as well, right? You coming with some firepower, I'm coming with some firepower too. Bodies are going to be dropping on both sides, right? It's a reason why the French, they've been laying low. They've been keeping it cool. It's a reason why the Western powers been laying low. They've been keeping it cool. They've been watching the developments, because they know you can't walk up to somebody and punch them in the face when you know they got a goddamn handgun in their waist. And that's why the Western powers especially been very respectful of the AES, because they know the AES been stacking up on their guns. You see, when it came to our forefathers made the mistake of coming to a gunfight with a machete, coming to a gunfight with a spear, coming to a gunfight with a goddamn dagger. No, we're not coming to the gunfight with a dagger. We coming to the gunfight. We coming with assault rifles too. We coming with air defense systems too. We coming with drones too. We dropping missiles too, just like you. Like I told you, man, the black man got them boys shook nowadays, bro. It's not 1992. It's 2025, boy. We're gonna bomb on you. Let's continue. The military government was aware of the possibility of such a scenario and had prepared itself accordingly. It regularly moved VIP detainees to new detention sites around which a solid security cordon was set up each time. After successive failures, the DGSE executive decided that their Burkina Faso peers would only agree to discussions with heavyweight interlocutors with whom they were used to working. One country which had maintained good ties with Ouagadougou after Captain Traoré came to power was Morocco. Traoré himself is well known for his ties with the Kingdom of Morocco. After his officer training school in Burkina Faso, he completed his artillery training course in Morocco in 2014. He returned from the kingdom seduced. He holds the Moroccans in high esteem and has always been quite complimentary about them, confided a Burkina Faso military officer. The military government's leader's sympathy for Morocco is not the only advantage the DGSE exploited. Morocco was also, in the second half of the 2010s, an important partner of the Burkina Faso services, then undergoing major restructuring after the fall of Blaise Compaoré, who was in power from 1987 to 2014. We had very good relations with the Moroccans, a former security official told Le Monde. We exchanged a lot of information, whether on terrorism or the fight against migrant trafficking. In 2016 and 2017, members of the ANR were sent to Morocco for training. Among them was Captain Oumarou Yabre, the current head of the agency, who, since his experience, has kept in touch with their Moroccan counterparts. Now, Oumarou Yabre, I believe that's the head of the Burkina Faso intelligence services, right? So the Burkina Faso version of the CIA, the head of that organization is a gentleman by the name of Oumarou Yabre, which is one of Ibrahim Traoré's, close associates, close comrades. So let's continue. This military government figure is also well acquainted with France. Having attended Saint-Cyr Military Academy, he was trained by the DGSE. In the late spring of 2024, the Moroccan DGED was approached. Now, I believe the Moroccan DGED is the Moroccan Intelligence Agency. Now, let's continue. One of the heads of the DGSE's crisis unit, formerly stationed in Burkina Faso and knowledgeable about Morocco, was at the helm. The Moroccans did not close the door. On July 30th, on the occasion of the Feast of the Throne, which commemorates the enthronement of Muhammad, Macron sent a letter to the Sharifa sovereign, in which he wrote that the present and future of Western Sahara fall within the framework of Moroccan sovereignty. For Paris and Morocco, this marked the end of several years of quarreling and the beginning of reconciliation. A break was lifted between the services and cooperation accelerated. Between September and December, several DGED executives traveled to Ouagadougou. During the same period, Captain Yabre made at least one trip to Morocco. The same goes for Lanier, who made 2 trips to the Kingdom of Morocco. At the end of October, during a state visit to Morocco to seal the reconciliation, Macron raised the hostage issue with Mohammed. In the weeks that followed, the contacts made by the Moroccans proved rather positive, and hope was reborn at the DGSE. A sudden denouement came on December 18th with a surprise agreement for a release. What did Captain Traoré receive in return for the release of the Frenchman? Morocco paid 60 million euros and gave equipment to the Burkinabés, claimed a source close to the DGED. This information is formally denied by the DGSE, which saluted the role of the various mediators involved. Back in Paris, the 4 agents were reunited with their families and colleagues at a drinks reception at the headquarters. After an initial psychological assessment and debriefing of their year in detention, they returned home for the festive season. For the now ex-hostages, the time has come to put the ordeal behind them. Now, that's the article. That's the article from the French media, from the French publication Le Monde. Where, as you can see, I can admit that in my initial reaction, I had read the situation incorrectly. I can admit that as a man. I can keep it real. That's the thing on my channel. We just keep it real. In my initial reaction, I just gave y'all how I personally felt. My only interpretation, because I couldn't understand why. I didn't have the inner workings behind the scenes, and I can admit that I was wrong. As a man, I can admit that I was wrong. Now, the DGSE denied that they had any part to play in the $60 million payment to liberate the French captives. But as you can see, yeah, they paid that bread. They paid that bread. They had to pay that bread. You heard what they said in the article. They said they was back in Paris, stressed out, ready to military invade. Like they were stressed out, sweating, trying to keep track of the situation. Them boys was stressed. But listen, this is off topic, but you remember that video I dropped a few days ago where I spoke about how Mali's going to get a $1.2 billion payday in the first quarter of the year from the mining companies, right? And also in that video, I spoke about how Burkina Faso also took back control of their gold mines, and they had settled and pretty much paid a British company $60 million to take back control of the gold mine, right? Gave them a settlement, told them, take this money, leave the country, give us back the gold mine. And they paid $60 million. Now we just found out that they received $60 million. Ibrahim Traoré received $60 million for the liberation of the French captives. So essentially, France basically facilitated the payment for Burkina Faso to take back control of their gold mines from the European multinationals, right? So Ibrahim Traoré really didn't pay a single dime to get control of the gold mines back, because France paid that on his behalf to get the liberation of the French spies. And he took that money and basically took back control of the gold mine simultaneously. Man, listen, man. Damn. Shout out to my boy. Shout out to my boy. Now, originally, he had asked for 150 M's. I guess that price was too high. So they were like, listen, we can't do that. The white man was like, chill, bro. You trying to break my back. You trying to break me, bro. You don't understand the GDP. Didn't I tell you that France's debt is currently rising and surpassing its GDP, which means that essentially, if they stay on this route, they're going to end up on the route to bankruptcy. They're going to have to restructure the entire economy because they're going to end up like Greece, with so much goddamn debt. So Ibrahim Traoré was like, listen, I need 150 M's. Emmanuel Macron was like, damn, bro, you trying to break me. Emmanuel Macron was like, bro, this nigga trying to break me. But as you can see, that price was negotiated down. But that's how you got to do it, bro. Like, for example, if you're trying to get $50 million, you got to ask for like 150 so you could, negotiate it down to 50 to get what you really want. So listen, man, shout out to my boy, man. Shout out to the AES, man. It's like, goddamn, bro. I swear to God, this is a movie, bro. But anyways, I ain't going to be here too long, man. It's your boy Neferkari. That's Salim back in the Billy. Yes, indeed. Cash App in the description. Support the channel, man. Support the album. Peace.
No. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders. You know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we young. She said that she ready to come be my wife. Yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city they loving me. Standing alone I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting is still in reach. They try to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress I've been gated away. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down but but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drop a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. None of your team be full of them traders, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wifey and hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word in this bond. I'm webbing the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news.